Welcome back to the Alter Ego Bros. I'm Andy, that's Nick, and today we're going to talk about how to make a killing. So without further ado, let's jump into our scores here. I am a 5 out of 10. I wanted to give this one a little bit higher of a rating. I thought it was actually a fun story, but there's some pet peeves about murder stories that just irk me every single time. I'll discuss those later.
I gave this movie a 7 out of 10. I have a lot of positive things to say about it, but there are some things that it has issues with.
So that's going to give us a combined channel rating of 6 out of 10, which is actually the rating I wanted to give it anyway, so that worked out.
I was kind of in that ballpark too, actually, to be honest. I was like, I think I'm a little bit higher, but I feel like Andy's score will bring this down a little bit. So
let's talk about the story then. It's the number one thing most people want to hear about, so I guess we'll discuss it. So it stars Glen Powell, but it's also narrated by him. It opens up with the scene of him in the jail, and then a priest comes in and he decides to regale his story of how he ended up in jail by telling you how he committed 7 murders. I really like that style of storytelling because it was really intriguing. I thought it was a cool way to kind of talk about a murder movie without it being just totally stereotypical. I really thought all the different murders were pretty creative, but they lacked a lot of logic. That's the irk part for me, and I have yet to see a murder movie where the director, the writers, the producers, everyone takes into consideration reality instead of just ignoring some things. And one of the big things that this movie ignores is fingerprints, any sort of evidence at any of these crime scenes that would clearly be there. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the movie, he gets caught because of fingerprints when he didn't actually commit the crime. And that one just
circled right back around.
That blew my mind. I want to dive deeper into that, but just before we do that, I want you to open up with kind of like your general thoughts on the story. But we're going to talk about the fingerprint evidence stuff.
It kind of blew past the relationships between the other Redfellow family members and Beckett, and you didn't really know why they were bad or why it was okay to kill them other than that they're rich and undeserving of it. I mean, okay, but it would have been nice to see some depth to that reasoning. We also don't really know why his mom was kicked out of the family other than she had a baby at 18. And that didn't really make much sense to me. I thought, well, maybe there's some sort of family rule, but they never explained any of that. The other more bigger issue to me is that I think this movie had problems with the stakes. Beckett is supposed to kill off these family members in order to receive some large, ridiculous number, right? Throughout the movie, we see Beckett struggle with his want to have a simple life with Ruth versus to have the life that not only his mom told him to have, which was the rich life, but to also be with his first crush, which is Julia. Julia's not in the movie enough to be a proper antagonist, in my opinion. And she is the antagonist. We don't really understand her motivations super well, other than she seems to be kind of crazy for Beckett, and that he was really fucked up by his mom telling him, you gotta have the rich life on her deathbed. And so he has these actions that are completely different from what he tells Ruth that he wants to give her. And there's no acknowledgement of that. There's no internal struggle. There's no, man, I am really being a shitty person right now to the person that I supposedly love. And there needed to have some sort of acknowledgement or aha moment of Beckett being like, well, this is what I want to do in order to move forward. They have that at the end, but I feel like it's more of a middle finger to the audience than anything else. I'm not super mad about the ending, but I also don't think it's the best ending ever either.
Oh, I'm mad about the ending, baby. If he gets away with all these murders where his fingerprints would have been on the anchor that he dropped, his fingerprints would have been on all of this evidence and cameras too, then killing Julia's husband because he happened to touch the letter opener and his fingerprints were on it, which was probably more of a partial than anything. So like he would have cell phone pings indicating that he was in a completely different area. He would have alibis. I mean, he just became a billionaire. He was the talk of the news at the time. There's going to be a lot of people knowing exactly where he is. And I think in the courtroom, I didn't quite catch it. They alluded to saying like he was like unaccounted for about an hour or something. I wasn't quite sure if that's what they were trying to allude to.
It was however long it took him to be in the office with the guy alone. There was no footage there. And they're like, oh, he was in there 4 minutes with this guy. And that's more than enough time to kill him.
So they're saying he killed him when he went to visit him earlier?
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. That would have been a long gap. That makes...
Right.
So it just, the ending, the way they try to wrap this up and get him caught, it just was so moronic that I was just like, I almost wanted to give this story a 0 because it just failed so badly in the end, but I didn't because it was still a fun, entertaining movie. But it just, I really want to challenge anyone in Hollywood to just make a really realistic murder movie. The guy's probably going to get caught. They often do. And especially when you kill 7 people in a matter of like a week. Like, come on.
Yeah, it would have been better if he were like still in jail and people kept dying and he still took credit for it for whatever reason, or he knew that he was the one who set things in motion for them to die, or even if the rest of the family was pit against each other now. Like he was just that one inciting incident and now they're all like, yeah, we can kill each other to get all that money to ourselves. Something like that would have been a more entertaining watch, something that would have been compelling and would have given a lot of those secondary characters more screen time, which is something that I really think this film needed. On the other half, it's very consistent for what the movie sets forth. At the beginning of the movie, Beckett poses the question, does money buy happiness? Yeah, hell yeah, of course it does. We're all adults here. And so he settles into that life and rides off into the sunset with Julia to their new $1 billion home. And I think that whole ending, getting out of jail scene is more of a rich people have a different level of accountability than the rest of us do. And once he became that, once Julia recognized him as that, he was able to just walk out of there. So consistently within the story itself, it did make sense, but it is a very unsatisfying ending.
You alluded to characters a second ago, so let's talk about the acting here. I thought everyone had an outstanding performance, from the main characters to the side characters, and this had Topher Grace in it, who I fucking hate. I hate seeing his fucking face, man. I hate his acting. I'm not a fan of him, but with that said, he didn't completely take me out of the movie in this one. I don't know why. He still acted like himself, but I guess it kind of fit. I don't really know. It's still also the number one reason why there could be a movie one day in the future that would be the best movie ever made on top of Interstellar, because they just had to cast Topher Grace in that fucking movie, man. It's such a good movie, and then Topher shows up, and I'm like, fuck me, dude. Anyway, I'm digressing. I also thought Glen Powell, I really liked him in Running Man, and he's starting to wear off on me now. He did an all right job, but he kind of feels like a knockoff Brad Pitt to me in this one. And I really wish he would just loosen up and be a little bit more, I don't know, expressive about what he's doing and feeling. He's just very rigid. But I did think Margaret Qualley, who I'm becoming a big favorite of, did an excellent job with her character. I really, really loved her character, and I really loved her in Honey Don't, despite us giving that one a low rating. She was really awesome in it. And Bill Camp. I really enjoyed Bill Camp in this one as well. I've always enjoyed Bill Camp. I think he should have some bigger roles, to be honest, but I thought he was really entertaining in this too. So those two get big kudos. Everyone else kind of just, I wish there was a bit more there.
I do think Glen Powell is overly hated, especially by the internet. I think he has the chops to do a major film like this. However, I agree. He's very rigid. I think he needs to do some really wacky out there stuff, you know, less action hero stuff, more just like character building, something that he is not the type for. And I could see him totally becoming like a Matthew McConaughey or a Brendan Fraser, somebody in like 10, 15 years who comes out of left field and gets an Oscar for something. Like I can just see it. And then I wanted to talk about Jessica Henwick, who played Ruth. I thought she did a fantastic job. That was a character I wasn't really expecting. I didn't think that there was going to be a love triangle aspect to this movie at all. So when her character's introduced, it was just kind of, oh, okay, all right. That's something that I wasn't quite expecting, but let's see where this goes. And you can really tell that Beckett fumbled the bag on that one, man. Like, Ruth was the one he should have been with, but that's the moral of the story, right? Is money worth everything? Yeah, but at a price. And for Beckett, the price was Ruth. So I don't have any issues with the acting overall, other than there needed to be a showcase of more individuals and not so much as tight of a focus as they had on Beckett. Last thing I want to say is that I do think the pacing for this movie was actually too fast. I think it could have greatly benefited from slowing down a tiny bit and exploring some of the side characters or just the relationship that Beckett has with Julia. I really wanted to see that character a lot more, and it's such a shame that she was only in the movie for like 6 or 7 minutes total.
That's rare for you to say that it was actually too fast. I don't think I've heard you make that comment before. I do think there were several times it kind of just rushed through things, and I get it. Like, you're trying to kill 7 people. I knew ahead of time you're not taking your time with each one. Like, there was going to be a point where they're going to show a montage of it, and that's exactly what happened. There's too many people. Probably what really would have happened is the story would have benefited if there's only like a couple people ahead of him instead of 7. That they literally made that up. So then why not just make it less people?
Well, at that point, you have to pit them against each other. That would have been more compelling to see part of the 7 go after the other 7. And then you kill literally 2 birds with 1 stone.
There's a lot more they could have done if they, sat there for 5 minutes to think about it. So let's see what the internet has to say instead. Looks like the audience gives this one about a 7.5 out of 10, so they're on the higher side, but critics give it a 5 out of 10 because I'm just a genius. I don't know what else to say. So they're in the ballpark with us as well, it seems like.
All right, I will have to put a caveat here. There was no 10 out of 10. And then on the flip side, the lowest score was a 4 out of 10, but it was way too long for us to slap on here.
All right, 5 out of 10. Fun, but would have liked more killing. The draw of this movie is you get to see rich people die, but there's not as much of that as you would like to think. It's good, don't get me wrong, but it's more of a thriller in that you watch this guy evade police, make stupid decisions, and be cocky. I like the end. It's very relevant to modern culture and the view society has on the rich. Not a bad movie, but I will forget it in 5 minutes. I wish they elaborated on what they meant by they wanted to see more killing. To our point, I thought it was too fast and it didn't allow it to actually dive into any sort of depth or have any character development because you had to rush through all of this stuff.
I don't think more deaths is what it needed. It would kind of teeter on horror territory there, but being more satisfying by giving more reasoning to why these are bad people and why it should seem okay within the movie and with Beckett that they're no longer around anymore.
Let us know your thoughts down below. Do you agree with our score or do you disagree? And remember to like and subscribe because YouTube really likes it if you do that. And if you don't, then our channel dies and we can't feed our kids.
And we die.
We quit our jobs for this. And remember, we're just 2 regular dudes
doing regular reviews.
Don't let kids go hungry.